Worship, administration doesn't have any amendments to the agenda this evening. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Let's do that real quick. Thank you. Councillor Hendricks.
So moved, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that carries unanimously. All right, so just before we get into the agenda proper, I'd like to make one proclamation tonight. Kin Canada Week, February 16th to 16th to the 22nd, 2020. Whereas Kin Canada has been a vibrant, responsible, all-Canadian association of service clubs devoted to the concept of serving its communities throughout Canada since its founding in Hamilton, Ontario on February 20th, 1920. And whereas Kin Canada has been dedicated to meeting the needs of our community and has diligently sought the development and completion of timely, relevant programs to meet the needs and challenges of our ever-evolving society. And whereas Kin Canada is celebrating its 100th anniversary on February 20th, 2020, and whereas the City of Beaumont encourages each citizen to welcome the opportunity to pause and reflect with pride on the rich heritage of accomplishment throughout the 100 years that the Kinsmen, Kinette, and Kin clubs have been in existence in Canada, and with the express idea of honoring our local club, therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor John Stewart, do hereby proclaim February 16th to the 22nd, 2020 as Kin Canada Week in the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated the 17th day of January 2020. Thank you very much. Item number 3, our consent agenda. I move that council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. Item 5A, budget workshop meeting minutes from January 16, 2020. Item 5B, budget workshop January 17, 2020 meeting minutes. Item 5C, budget workshop January 18, 2020. And item 5D, regular council meeting minutes of January 28, 2020. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe there's an error in one of the minutes in that Councillor Danlock is shown as having voted both for and against a motion. I can't remember which one he did, but I'm sure he can though, but it can't have been both, so I'm assuming there's an error, and I'm just trying to find it now. I should have written it down.
Ms. Winter?
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Stout. I'll go ahead and have a look through the minutes again to find that.
It was the one to appoint a member to the, to appoint yourself and Councillor Barnhart to.
So it's in the regular
That would
council
be the
meeting minutes of
January
January
28th
28th.
minutes.
Yes, I think that's correct.
8A. Is that a problem?
Well, you can't have done both, so the minutes must be incorrect.
So we'll reflect that the minutes were amended to note that Councillor Danlock voted in opposition to that, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
Correct. Councillor Montgomery.
Yeah, thank you. Just maybe a comment around this. Clearly, it's obviously important to have minutes that are right. I just wonder if there's a better process than waiting for now to bring this sort of stuff up. If we can, if we know about this stuff earlier, we can contact folks in advance, so we can get the minutes right before we have them presented here. We got them 4 or 5 days ago, so I know there are going to be sometimes spelling mistakes and voting things either way. I was just curious if you had anything to weigh in on that. I think this is, if we do this every second Tuesday and worry about those sort of things, yes, we get them right, but I think we can do it earlier. So that would be my preference anyway.
No, we've discussed this before, and my preference is still, if you find it, to let administration know before we get to this point. But if we find them now, it is the process to amend them now. So, all in favor of minutes as amended? Further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Carries unanimously. Which brings us to item 4, our open forum. We have one registered presentation tonight. I'd like to invite Mr. David Warward to the table. Gentlemen, go on down. Tell us who you are and why you're here. please.
Yeah, so I'm John Ward, Rob Ducharme. We're just here, is my 5 minutes starting? Okay. All right. So good evening. Thank you for the time and allowing me to speak. I'm here tonight to express my concerns, or our concerns, I should say, with the Colonial Estates Pocket Park and the proposed increased budget on said park. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time digging up the past, but I feel a bit of history is important here. You see, this park has been an ongoing concern with us, and frankly, with all of the property owners that backed onto this space for quite some time now. It all started about a year and a half ago when we were suddenly surprised to learn that the green space behind our houses was now being turned into a park/playground. The same green space that all of us were told by salesmen and realtors during the purchase process of our homes that was going to remain a green space. Further to this, the way in which we all had to find out about it was quite upsetting. It was only through a Facebook post that we were even made aware of this. Imagine all of our shock and amazement. It seems that other residents of the neighborhood had joined forces with one of the town councilors and started a group to try and push this park through, but what they failed to do was include any of the homeowners backing out of the park. So all of their claims that everyone in the area was on board and excited about it, those were actually wrong, as clearly none of us were even made aware. So we attempted to attend meetings, get the attention of authorities and governing parties to discuss all of this, but were basically told we were too late and the park was happening no matter what. We were also told we would have an opportunity to view what was going to be constructed prior to it happening, and an invitation was extended to attend a meeting at the Beaumont Community Center on April 1st of 2019, conducted by Ian Frankton. Families from the neighboring properties attended, and during this meeting it was discussed the size of the play structure would be quite small and any other amenities would be quite limited as well due to the overall physical size of the space and the limitations with regards to setbacks from property lines, etc. This park space happens to be quite small, in fact, that it is only, from what we understand, to be 2.3 hectares, and by today's standards set out in the Open Space and Trails Master Plan, it should be a minimum of 0.25 hectares. Discussions from this meeting also included that whatever equipment there was to be installed in this initial phase would be it, the end, and now, to our surprise, an additional $30,000 is being proposed. If I'm accurate in saying $30,000 is more than the initial budget on this park. How is it possible that this park can be more than doubled in size given its physical limitations and going completely against what we were told less than a year ago? And again, all of this being done without a single consultation, discussion with any of the property owners who are being affected the most. Don't get me wrong, folks. We have nothing against children or parks, and none of us do. In fact, we all have children. Children and parks are not the issue. The issue stems from the whole fact that we were misled in the beginning and then not properly represented or respected by the town or city that we pay taxes to. The issue is that this park is too small and we have very little privacy in our own backyards because the park structure and play area sits a mere 40 feet from our back fence. A fence, I might add, that offers nothing by way of separation for noise or lines of sight due to the fact that it is only a 4-foot-high chain link. I feel that if the city chooses to proceed with this additional budget and expansion, then it should too look at changing the fence along our rear lines to a 6-foot wooden privacy fence. In my opinion, this is wasted tax dollars, and I think they could be spent elsewhere. Anything to add, Rob?
Thanks. Yeah, I'll try to chew up this last minute. And thank you for your time. We appreciate the ability to present our case. My concern outside of this park being established, I would not like to see any addition. We have seen no evidence of feasibility studies or due diligence as part of the town or city. And I'd like Beaumont to act like a city. We think that this is being kind of pushed upon us without Beaumont even protecting itself, the city of Beaumont protecting itself, and allowing for adequate input from ourselves and the surrounding residents. That's all I got.
No, well, we do appreciate your coming in tonight and talking to us, and I know you and I have had a discussion already at length. And I just want to once again reassure you that the decision isn't final yet. Budget comes back to committee of the whole next week, and we as members of council will have a chance to discuss it at that time and take your concerns into account. And then it comes back for final approval at the end of February. So, like I said, I have heard what you had to say, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have a discussion about this. What's currently held in the budget, though, is currently a placeholder of $30,000. We still have to do the consultation process and all of that goes with it, but without the placeholder in the budget, we can't even start that process. So I get what you're saying, and I apologize that it sort of got sprung on you last minute. That's not really our intention. We are trying to do things differently and better, and we'll go from there. Do you mind if I open it up to questions from council?
Sure, that's why we're here.
Do any members of council have questions for the presenters this evening? No. We'll keep in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate your coming in
Appreciate the
tonight.
time.
All right. So this brings us to item 6A, public hearings for bylaw 97220, our zoning blueprint. Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to members of council and the public. The purpose of bylaw 972-20 is to amend several sections of the R zoning blueprint land use bylaw 944-19. The notice of the public hearing was provided in writing to the City of Edmonton, Leduc County, and the school boards. The public hearing notice was advertised in the local newspaper on January 31st and February 7th, 2020. The public hearing notice was advertised on the Beaumont's website beginning January 27th, 2020. Currently, any written submissions received have been included in the agenda package, and there's currently nothing to read in the record at this time.
Thank you very much. So at this point, we'll declare that the public hearing is open, and the hearing is being held pursuant to sections 230-606 and 692 of the Municipal Government Act. And we'll turn it over to the presenters.
Thank you, members of council, your worship, and members of the public. So tonight, I'd like to provide you first with some background on how we came to the amendments, the proposed amendments. The proposed amendments are based on a monitoring program and consultation that we did with the development community. When we were developing the current land use bylaw, we wanted to ensure, obviously, that it's in compliance and is the regulatory document for our higher level planning documents. We wanted it to remain current. We wanted it to be flexible and responsive to the needs of the community and the development industry. And in order to do that, we needed to have an effective monitoring program. So the monitoring program that we had developed was intended to provide quantitative data on subdivision and development applications that guide the regular updates to the land use bylaw. So our intention is to do a review and monitor on a 6-month rotation basis. So on the first 6 months results, administration has prepared amendments to achieve the goals outlined in the monitoring program, to reduce red tape and to reduce redundancy, correct omissions, typographical and grammatical errors, and clarify definitions. And those two things are quite common in the first amendments of a land use bylaw. As we start working with it, we realize that certain sections might be repeated, that there might be language that isn't quite right and doesn't give us the intention of the regulation that we were hoping for. So based on the monitoring program, some of the information, some of the data that we were able to extract from the information that we collect as we receive development permits was on our fast track signage permits. So our intention with the fast track permits for signage was that 75% of signage applications would be able to utilize the fast track process. With the current regulations that we have, we actually had the opposite effect, that 41% of our signage applications required variances, and only 30% were able to use the fast track process. So the proposed amendments that we have will address that, and I'll get into that further. One of the things that we'd also like to start to do that we haven't done yet was develop a post-decision survey so that we can ask applicants how they found the process and whether or not that worked for them as well. With respect to new house development permit applications, our intention was to be able to deem applications complete within 3 days, and then within 3 days after that, make a decision on the development permit. Those are our targets. As you can see, based on the information here, about 75% of our applications are being deemed complete within 10 days and a decision within 10 days. Our average is 7 days to deem it complete and average of 7 days to make a decision. The target that we had expressed was 3 business days. Currently, the way we are able to track this information doesn't allow us to separate out business days from actual days. So keep in mind that these numbers are days, not just business days. And then this is information on other residential permits, so decks, garages, basements. Sorry, not basements. We don't do development permits on basements. Those are just building permits. But any other structures that are put on the property. So again, 75% of our applications are deemed complete and decided on within 10 days. Simple commercial applications are intended to be tenant improvements. This is when you have a building that's already built and there's a bay that a business wants to go into. So again, around 75% of our applications are being deemed complete and decided on within 10 days. So to continue to provide clarity on the application process and decision making process, our complex commercial permits, so that would be a brand new commercial building, our target is to deem the application complete within 5 business days and then within 20 business days to make a decision. So since the bylaw has been in place, we've received 3 complex permits received to date. One was a school renovation, and then there were 2 new commercial buildings. And one of those commercial buildings, though, was previously approved under the old bylaw, and they've reapplied under the new bylaw. So the results were school was deemed complete in 19 days, and a decision was made in 36 days. And our commercial permits ranged from 25 to 36 days to issue a decision. So when we met with the development community, they had indicated to us that this was well ahead of a number of communities. When I did check with some of the other communities, so our regional communities aren't keeping track of this. They aren't producing these statistics. The only one that is the City of Edmonton. So that is the only comparator that we have. And we're quite close to what they're doing. With respect to subdivision applications, our target is 5 business days to deem it complete and 60 days to make the decision. When this information was compiled, we had only received 1 application. We deemed it complete within 19 days. However, that applicant required additional information, so we weren't able to deem it complete until they provided us that additional information. And then once it was deemed complete, we were able to make a decision within 37 days. So again, the development community had indicated to us that this is quite quick for them. Again, another target to provide clarity to determine whether the LUB is providing clarity on the application process and our decisions is that the percent of our total applications requiring a variance should remain low. So our low we had indicated is between 0 and 33%. Prior to our land use bylaw coming into effect, our previous land use bylaw, we had 4.7% of our applications required variances. When our new land use bylaw came in, we went up to 23%. Now that's because, and I'll get into that, that's because of some setbacks that we put into our conventional neighborhood district. So we're looking at amending that will correct this. We had 1 appeal to our SDAB, and no applications were overturned by our Subdivision Development Appeal Board, and we had no legal challenges on our land use bylaw. So this gets into some of the proposed land use bylaw amendments that will address these this data that we've compiled. So as I mentioned, our conventional neighborhood district setbacks, we had implemented a maximum side yard and a maximum rear yard setback. This was to help provide flexibility so that a developer could come in and have a range of setbacks that they could build to. But what we were finding in the conventional neighborhood district was that most of the builders already had their buildings designed to a setback, and we're actually increasing it so that they met the minimums of our old land use bylaw. The conventional neighborhood district is intended to be to see the same form that Beaumont has traditionally had. So it wasn't meant to have a brand new form. It was meant to be kind of like business as usual. So by putting in this maximum, it was requiring a number of variances to be applied for by the builders. So we worked with them through that to help them through that process, but we still had to go through that process. So we proposed to remove the maximum side yard setbacks and front yard setbacks in this district, and to revise the rear yard setback for the first principal structure to be 6 meters. And the reason we say the first principal structure is that you can have more than one principal structure on the site. An accessory structure would be something that wouldn't exist there without that structure in the first place. So because we can have up to 4 dwelling units on a lot, you could potentially have 2 main structures on the lot. So we want to make sure, though, with these setbacks, that we don't end up with one tiny home or one large apartment building. And by making these changes, we think we still are able to provide flexibility to the builder on the site and ensure that we get the form that we want. Another proposed amendment that we want to make that will help ensure the design, character, and appearance of the building is language that reinforces this. So the city of High River also has a land use bylaw that is similar to ours. And this is a regulation that they have in their bylaw, and they've been able to use it quite successfully to maintain the look of a neighborhood. So we've proposed to add in language that will strengthen that as well. Some of the general amendments that will also help with variance requirements are and timelines are the notification requirements. So currently the requirement indicates that the development authority will issue or require that a notice of proposed development be posted on a site that requires a variance or is for a discretionary use. We propose to revise that so that it's just that the development authority may require that notice. So this is a notice that would be posted on the site for 10 days before the development authority would make a decision. This doesn't negate the fact that they still have, anybody still has the opportunity to appeal the decision of the development authority as proposed or as regulated by the Municipal Government Act. So that still is there. This is just something that was put on as an advance notice to people. We've put in the language as may be required so that if there is, based on our assessment of the site and the proposed development, that we think notice should be given to adjacents, that this is an opportunity to put that advance notice out there for them so we can mitigate any issues that might come up. So the rationale for this, for these proposed amendments, is that it will reduce the number of variances required to homes that are already designed for conventional lots. It will still allow diverse housing mix and options for secondary suites and tiny homes, but would prevent an apartment or a single tiny home on a lot. It provides more clear language within the district to preserve the feel of the conventional neighborhood, but we're not looking to amend the integrated neighborhood as a new standard of development is expected there. So we're looking for a new form of development in the integrated neighborhood. Our conventional neighborhood is, again, kind of like status quo. So we've also proposed to amend some landscaping requirements in the commercial Main Street and integrated neighborhoods for commercial uses. So what we noticed with lots less than 2,500 square meters is that they still had the ability to have some landscaping requirements, but our land use bylaw doesn't require that. So we're looking to add in some language that would require a minimum of 3 trees and 5 shrubs on the lot, just the standard number. For lots over 2,500 square meters, we did some additional research based on some information that one of the developers had provided to us, and our landscaping requirements are still quite high compared to some of the other municipalities. So as you can see, The same size of lot in Beaumont would require 116 trees, but only 35 in Edmonton and Spruce Grove and 40 in Leduc, 178 in Fort Saskatchewan. So not a great example. So we propose to, we propose to amend our landscaping requirements to be similar to Leduc in that they take 10% of the development area, they take 9% of the development area. Based on our calculations, we think 10% is reasonable for Beaumont, and that would put us more in line with our regional municipalities. The shopfront entrance features, right now, 70% of the ground floor facade is required to be non-glazed. We are going to amend or propose to amend that to be non-glazed to 50% so that it's consistent with our commercial district. Again, just making sure that development is easy for our developers to come in and achieve. And so as I noted at the beginning of the presentation, a number of our variances were fascia and wall signage. So we propose to amend the language that would provide for a larger signage, and that's really what the variances were for. Every one of those variances was for larger signage. So this proposed revision increases the size of the signage to something that we've been seeing as a request. Some of the other general amendments that we propose include accessory building setbacks, large vehicles, so adding a definition of a driveway and that they're required to be parked on a driveway, limiting to 2 employees in attendance for a home-based business, and fencing and screening, requiring that no permit is required for a fence less than 1 meter in height when the fence is along the street, and making sure that tarpaulin structures greater than 10 square meters are not permitted in any district where they haven't already been included. So our public engagement and communication started back in November with our development community. So after we had compiled the information from April to October, we met with the development community, presented to them the statistics that I provided to you tonight, as well as some of the proposed amendments. We circulated those to them in December. They provided us with comments back, and we recirculated it to them on January 13th. And then we've provided circulation to the City of Edmonton, Leduc School, or Leduc County, and our school boards, and provided opportunities at a public and open house and online survey for the general public to provide comment, as well as advertising this public hearing. All of the comments that we received from the development community have been incorporated into these amendments. And we received no comments from the City of Edmonton, Leduc County, or any of the school boards. The results from the public open house and online survey were inconclusive. The online survey for the land use bylaw portion were 2 responses. However, with posting it on the website and through our social media, we did have a really good engagement in our social media. Information provided to me by our communications department was that in the first 19 hours that we had posted, we reached over 900 people and had over 100 engagements. So we did reach people, they just didn't have any comments is the assumption that I can make based on that. That's all I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate the information. One quick clarifying question for me, going back to the monitoring program.
Yes.
Just to clarify, the clock starts on deemed to be complete when they submit, and then when does the clock start for the decision? At 0 or after deemed complete?
Sure. So the days to deem complete. So the Municipal Government Act requires us to deem an application complete within 20 days and make a decision within 40 days. So the 20 days starts from the date the application is actually received. We have 20 days to deem it complete. That's just to make sure they have all of the information we need to make a decision. Then after that 20 days, then we have 40 days to make a decision, a refusal or an approval or approval with conditions. So a total of 60 days is the maximum that we have to make the decision.
Okay, so clock starts on decision after deemed complete is done.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Questions from members of council? Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you for the presentation. Each time I hear it, I get a little more information. And one particular mention of the home-based business major. I don't think I caught that the first time around. So could you just clarify, help me understand what's the difference between a home-based business and a home-based business major?
Sure.
Are there differences in fees? And I see the number of employees is instead of 1, it's 2. So anything you can give me to help me understand that would be great.
Thank you, Worship. Through to Councillor Barnhart. So a home-based business major in all of the districts is a discretionary use. A home-based minor is a permitted use. So with a home-based business minor, if you come in and make the application and meet all of the requirements of the land use bylaw, you have your permit approved. With a home-based business major, let me clarify as well, with a home-based business minor, no client visits are permitted. So we're really talking about an office and telephone. The residential character of the building shall not be affected. No signs are permitted and no accessory structures are utilized for the purpose of the business. So its impact on the neighborhood is very minor. A home-based business major is typically those businesses that have client visits. So you can have up to 10 clients per day. It includes a day home. Can include a day home. You can have signage on the property, may include outdoor activities. And the reason that we included no more than 2 employees in attendance at any one time is that there's a couple of reasons. All of our districts are mixed use. So we can have some commercial uses as well as residential uses in our residential areas. And in our commercial area, we can have residential uses as well as commercial. What we wanted to do was ensure that there was good clarification between a commercial use and a home-based business use, especially in the conventional neighborhood district, because in the conventional neighborhood district, the form has to remain like a house. It has to still look like a single-family dwelling. So we wanted to make sure that there was clarification between the types of operation that was happening there. What is a home-based business major and what is a commercial use? And by restricting the number of employees, we can tell then if it's going to be a more impact on the neighborhood and if it's actually going to be a commercial use. As well with a home-based business major, because it's a discretionary use, so there's an appeal period. There are additional fees associated with it because there is a notification period and because there is a discretionary use. So we charge for those services to put out that notification fee and to circulate that. So there is a bit of a longer process with it.
Just if I could, the signage piece of that. So what are the limitations on the signage? If you could just summarize them, please.
Sure. It says 1 non-illuminated sign shall be permitted.
Non-illuminated.
Non-illuminated, yeah.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Van Nieuwkerk.
Yeah, I think you just clarified on that same path there, just on the home-based business major limiting 2 employees. What was the feedback received that's brought about this proposed change?
It was based on, sorry, Your Worship, thank you, through to Councillor Van Nieuwkerk. It was based on some review of applications that we had received, and some of the information that we were getting from some of the applications was not clear as to whether they would be operating a commercial business or an actual home-based business. So we needed to put some parameters around that so we could clearly define the difference.
So we didn't get as far as complaints from neighbors or complaints from other business. This was kind of on the intake side of things where the clarity was noticed that it might help.
Thank you, Worship. Through to Councillor Van Nieuwkerk. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from members of council? Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Worship. A couple of quick questions, if you don't mind. Thank you, Mr. Dargy, for your presentation. On the 2 employees, does that include the owner of the business and 2 employees, or the owner and 1 employee, just for clarification purposes? Do you consider the owner to be an employee in a home business?
Thank you, Worship. Through to Councillor Danlock. Yes, we do.
Okay, so it'd be 2, including the owner.
Correct.
Thank you. And going back to the section on the trees and shrubbery, so we're looking at reducing our requirements to make us more competitive with our other municipalities, make it easier to do business with Beaumont?
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no further requests to speak, well, thank you very much for your presentation. We'll now open up the public hearing to the public, and so any person that's going to be coming down and giving an oral presentation, please come down, state your name for the record, and then you may present. Is there anybody in the audience tonight wishing to speak in favor of the bylaw? Is there anybody in the audience tonight wishing to speak in opposition to the bylaw? Is there any person present tonight that deems themselves to be affected who wishes to be heard? All right, seeing none, does administration wish to make a closing comment?
Thank you, Your Worship, through to members of council. So at this time, we'd like to suggest, present, recommend to council second and third reading of the proposed amendments.
Thank you very much. So at this time, we will declare the public hearing is closed. Is there a member of council willing to move second reading of bylaw 9720 amendments to our zoning blueprint? Councillor Stout.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion. Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question as a follow-up before, actually. So
Sure.
the contractor development community were quite receptive of the communication you had with them, and the feedback from them was what receptive, what we're trying to accomplish here. Do you feel you have the confidence of the development community?
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Daniluk. Based on the communication that we had with them, I'm confident that they are comfortable and happy with the changes, proposed amendments that we are making.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further requests to carry unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move third reading? Councillor Van Nieuwkerk.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion. All right, seeing none, all in favor of third reading on bylaw 9720 amendments to our zoning blueprint. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Which brings us to item 7A, item 7, registered presentations. First up, Drive Happiness. Welcome to council chambers.
Thank you. Right, we're here today to represent Drive Happiness. We are a nonprofit organization and we provide seniors assisted transportation using volunteer drivers. So we have a two-tiered approach. We manage a pool of volunteers as well as a pool of seniors who need assisted transportation, that's door through door. To become a rider with Drive Happiness, a senior must fill out an application form, and in that form we ask for their annual income. Based on their income, we have an annual fee that can range from as low as $30 a year, and it goes up on a sliding scale. Then we operate with a paperless ticket system. So tickets cost $10 each, and they are good for 90 minutes or 40 kilometers, whichever comes first. So if you were to think of a trip to the grocery store, a senior could travel to the store, do their shopping, and get home within 90 minutes. And the round trip would be less than 40 kilometers, so that would be a one-ticket ride. But a doctor's appointment, the travel time plus the appointment time might be more than 90 minutes, so it could be one ticket to get them there and another to get them back. We also work with our volunteers, and Evelyn.
So our volunteers are all screened, so we go through a screening process. They fill out an application, they provide us with a vulnerable sector police check and also a copy of their driver's abstract so we can ensure that they're in good hands. Sorry, the seniors are in good hands. So we have a pool of about 92 volunteers. 5 of them are actually from Beaumont right now, and they're doing, anywhere on average from 30 to 80 rides a day. And that can be mainly to medical appointments, simply to the grocery store, maybe any other recreational program that they're attending, like fitness classes or, say, any local senior center classes. And we do all this through a scheduling system called Ride Scheduler. So as a volunteer, they have access to our database. They can choose when they drive, where they drive, and how often they drive. So a very flexible position, and then they do get a gas reimbursement. So whereas the seniors will call and book their rides through the office, the volunteers can pull it up on the internet and they can choose their own schedule. There's no mandate to how much time they have to commit to us. We just say when and where they can is great. So the second part of our presentation is a bit on our funding model. So we don't have any consistent funding through any levels of government right now, and we do subsidize about $26 of each ride. So that includes the cost of operational costs, volunteer screening costs, and then gas reimbursements to our volunteers. So the seniors do pay a small fee, and that mainly goes back towards our volunteers for their gas reimbursement. So for example, last year in Beaumont, we did 636 rides for your seniors here that use the service, which we subsidized $26 of each time. So that put us at a deficit of around $16,000 just for our Beaumont riders. We are hoping to expand the service in Beaumont. We've been working with the FCSS office and also some local seniors organizations, and including the library over here. We've been doing some presentations and doing some outreach. We recently sent out a mail out to houses that ranged an age range of 55 plus to recruit volunteers, but also recruit riders to use the service. Yeah, that's us in a nutshell.
That's awesome. I was really impressed to see that service does exist and it is being used in our community. You did mention that you're looking for some funding. We do have a grants program that should cover this. Have you reached out to our administration to apply?
Yeah, we are aware of the grants program. The one issue that has arisen in the past that some granting mandates don't cover operational costs, or that they don't fund transportation directly. So we've had to kind of wiggle out what our grants can go towards as in volunteer recruitment, not subsidizing the cost of the transportation.
No, fair enough. I do know the council's intention when we put the grant policy in, and it's only I think we're on to our third iteration, and we're looking forward to a review. It's supposed to be all inclusive. It's supposed to be a grant that they can come in and help you do your organization and provide services to the community residents of Beaumont. If it's not like that, I'm sure that our administration can help sort that out and figure out a way to get it through. Because the intention is to be able to provide funds to organizations like yours through our granting program. And if it's not working, then we'll have to figure out why it's not working and amend the policy. Do you mind if I open it up to questions from members of council?
Yeah.
Councillor Margot Swain.
Thanks for the presentation. I have to admit, I didn't know about your organization, so really appreciate you coming in. Timing's pretty good, actually. We just, we're going to have a conversation potentially later, about regional transit here. And when I was talking about that with residents, a lot of folks said, okay, well, what are you doing for our seniors here, right? And the recommendation about, well, Leduc does this and Strathcona County does that, what do you do here? And I didn't really have a good answer. And this may be an answer, but so I guess a couple of questions for you. Are there other organizations like yourselves who offer this service around here?
Within the Edmonton Capital Region, there are for-profit organizations, but ours, we keep it at an affordable rate, and it's volunteers. So our volunteers get quite a bit of training. They go through, if they want, they can take mental health first aid. We just ran through a CNIB vision care training, dementia care. So they become a real connector to the seniors that other organizations wouldn't have that same impact.
And just to piggyback on that, we do like to address social isolation. So whereas there are no other non-profits like us, the for-profit services don't have that added level of care. So we like to kind of refer our seniors to any other organizations or any other events that are happening to help them get them out of the house. And especially in some more rural areas, people can become quite isolated. Maybe if they lose their license, they're confined to their acreages. And then that can cause issues too. Social isolation can lead to advanced health, situations like cognitive issues, or maybe a decline in physical health as well as mental health.
I mean, this is fascinating for me. And I know we're not here just for me to get my own interest levels. So, what are you looking for? I guess. I mean, you said kind of funding, and then talked about a grants policy. But what's your ideal scenario from Beaumont?
Like some help with support and reaching out to the community. We are based in Edmonton, so sometimes when we come out to these smaller cities, that there is a bit of resistance and reluctance. So if you can refer us to the individuals that maybe approach you about transportation, if you know of anyone that is very volunteer-led and looking for more volunteer opportunities in the community, you could refer them to us as well.
Yeah, I'd be curious, maybe from administration, if there I don't know if risks is the right word, if there is anything from a city administration perspective on what we would need to consider in order to kind of move this forward. I don't want to speak on behalf of anyone else, but yeah, I'm just curious here. So is there anything from an administrative perspective that potentially raises any flags around this? CEO?
You know, just off the cuff, not really. I think there's obviously some legalities you got to
Sure.
look at, right, as a municipality, but it sounds like quite frankly, a pretty interesting program. And I think we'd be willing to explore this a little bit further if that's what we agree to the next steps and see what details we have to work out, or what does this look like.
Might be a good way to go. I'm leaning that way.
Yeah, I'll rest.
Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the presentation. That was terrific. Thank you for all the work you're doing in Beaumont, the good work and important work I think you're doing or already have done. Did you say 636 rides? No. 18,000? No, not all of those are in Beaumont.
Yeah.
No.
So
642 rides, okay.
Oh, 600, so it's gone up since my calculation, 642 then in 2019.
Okay.
So just a portion
I
of the total rides we did.
I did hear 636 then. Okay, good. I'm not going crazy, or at least not for that reason. Okay, that's wonderful. My feeling is that this is a big part, a missing part of the whole public transit puzzle, right? It covers the last kilometre, first kilometre issue, and it covers the off-peak weekend necessities as well, which, you know, if you're ill and you need a ride, then it doesn't matter whether it's a weekend or not. I think it's really important. I'm minded to say that if our grant policy doesn't cover something like this, then I'm willing to open it up and modify it until it does, because I really can't think of a better candidate for a community grant than this. You're aware that, and the other thing I was going to say was that the grant policy is capped at, I think, $10,000. And you spent, is that what it is? Okay, community, am I correct?
Paul's.
To maximum? Okay, 10 grand. So, but your expenditure here was 16,000 and you're expecting that it might double. So I assume then that conceivably you could be spending 32,000 in 2020.
The potential for that, and we do have some provincial government funding for our expansion project in the outlying communities, so we hope that can cover some of the expenses as well.
So there's the opportunity for other grants then?
Yeah, and we're always actively seeking other grants as well, but it is nice when we can have support from the cities and the towns and the municipalities that we operate in.
Okay. So yeah, if we wanted to either change the policy or go above that amount, I suppose we would have to make a special case. Which is something I'm willing to consider, but clearly we need to discuss that with the administration. Okay, thank you. I was going to ask another question, which is this confined entirely to seniors? Is there some scope for disabled people?
There is, yeah.
People with mobility
people
problems?
with mobility issues. Because the drivers are all using their own vehicles, we're kind of people with a walker or a cane. We're able to accommodate. So someone in a wheelchair, because it would be difficult to get them into a volunteer's vehicle. We're not able to accommodate that, or wheelchairs or scooters, but we do help people that are on the younger end and that do have barriers to transportation.
Okay, good to hear, because yeah, there isn't really an age. It's not an age constraint. It's a need constraint, or
Absolutely.
at least as adjudged by you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I have any more questions.
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you very much, ladies. That was a very good presentation. I have a feeling this is deja vu all over again, that I think I knew your organization way back when. If I'm not mistaken, you're not a new organization. You're just a name change. I don't know how many years ago?
Yes, so in 2015, the City of Edmonton petitioned to join 3 organizations together under the name of Lift Drive Happiness. And then in 2018, we officially changed our name to Drive Happiness.
Perfect. Well, that was kind of what I wanted to see if that finally did happen.
It's
'Cause
still us.
I was part of that when it started. So I'm glad to see that you're also branching out into the region because definitely people are going that way. Just drove back from there, and there's a lot of traffic back and forth. $180,000. Is that your current budget? I saw that number in the report.
So our current budget is about 500,000. The 180,000 was emergency funding that we received from the City of Edmonton in March of 2019.
So that's an annual amount, but they gave it to you for 1 year? You have to reapply for another year?
That's what we're trying to work on right now with them to get some additional funding through the city, but that's not confirmed as of yet.
So it's not, you haven't been told no, it's just you have to reapply every year. And I wanted to clarify the funding request that you said you had conversations with our administration about the FCSS funding. FCSS funding says no to transportation, but I think the mayor was talking about other sorts of funding, but you haven't discussed that with us yet.
We did receive the application that we did take a look at, and we did see that it was for a smaller amount, and then the restriction on operating dollars. I think it said newer organizations between 3 and 5 years, whereas us in Beaumont, we've only been operating for the past 2 to 3 years, so we would fall in that category of a new organization here, or because we've been operating in Edmonton for the past 23 years, we'll be seen as an old.
You're not a new organization. And my last question would be around how many staff do you currently have? How many paid staff?
We have 4 full-time employees and then 1 part-time employee.
4. And your board is functioning with how many members?
Right now, we have 10 board members. Currently, we don't have a sitting president or vice president.
And add one. Is there a regional representation on the board?
No, they're all based out of Edmonton at the moment.
Is that a possibility to be considered?
Absolutely. We're trying to recruit board members right now for our upcoming AGM, which is April 18th. So if there is any suggestions, we would happily take that on.
All right, thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
You're right, Councilor Danlick.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, ladies. A couple of quick questions, if you don't mind. So, where else do you operate besides Edmonton and Beaumont, obviously? What other municipalities do you visit or have given rise to in 2019 that you're aware of?
We're in St. Albert, Sherwood Park. We are in Drayton Valley. We've recently expanded up there.
Stony Plains, Spruce Grove. Also, we're starting up operations in Thorsby, Devon. We have a few riders in Leduc, and then a few volunteers in Fort Saskatchewan. So we're trying to recruit some more seniors out there too.
Okay. So having said that, any success in getting funding from those municipalities in terms of any kind of granting from the municipality itself or any kind of sustainable funding from other municipalities?
We receive funding through the Drayton Valley FCSS office and also Strathcona County Family and Community Services.
Okay.
But those are just small amounts, and because they are through FCSS, it's solely for volunteer recruitment and not to fund the subsidization of the cost of the rides.
Thank you. I'm aware of some seniors actually use your service, and I was aware of it, but I didn't realize how many rides you had in 2019, 18,500. That's a very large number, so do appreciate your service. Thank you.
Councilor Van Newkirk.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. And I don't know if you anticipated this many questions, but just a question on your ridership. Do you guys partner with any, buildings or organizations for the ridership? Going from 3,800 to 18,000 is quite the jump. So the word must be getting out. Maybe you could speak to some of the partnerships you formed in the region.
So the growth was during the period of a New Horizons grant through the federal government. We partnered with 6 other Edmonton-based senior serving organizations to receive funding, and there was lots of referrals through that. So for example, Sage Seniors Association, GEF Seniors Housing, West End Seniors Activity Centre, and then Southside PCN. They would refer a lot of clients to us, and then we would in turn refer our clients to their services. So that's when the growth started. Currently, we work with Catholic Social Services. We work with organizations like Living Sounds, and they'll pay for their rides for seniors to get to their clinics. There's a few other seniors housing organizations that we work with, like we do presentations at various Chartwell buildings, and we work with Christensen Developments. We started to work with Bayshore Home Health as well. So we do seek out organizations that we can partner with as well.
Which is probably what's facilitating a $3,800 to $18,000 ridership. So last comment would be, it sounds like you're geographic footprint spans a few political boundaries. Make sure that you're hitting up the MLAs in those regions and raise the awareness there, because I think you've twigged the awareness in this room tonight, but I think there's more awareness that needs to happen for the service that you're providing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Stout, final question. Councillor Stout, followed by Councillor Hendricks. 2 questions, and then we'll wrap this up.
Sure, just one quick question I wanted to ask. You referred to a lot of these rides being for medical appointments, which I assume in Birdwell to, maybe going to the grocery store on a 90-minute ticket.
Yeah,
I would say probably around 40 to 60% are solely based in Beaumont to get to their kind of local medical appointments, but also to drive them to the grocery store or anything else they need to do. And I'd say the other kind of 40 to 50% are into Edmonton for specialist appointments.
the nice thing too about a local Beaumont trip is that when they call to book the ride, they can make as many stops as they like. So they can go to the grocery store, to the bank, to stop at Walmart, that sort of thing. They can get all of their errands done for the week. And as long as it's within that 90 minutes, 40 kilometers, it's one ticket. So it would be the same driver kind of taking them. They'll help them with their groceries in. So, it's not companion care, but it is care that they're receiving.
Okay, thank you. So 40 to 60% of 642 rides, so it could be as many as 350 rides. Okay, great, thank you.
Councillor Hendricks.
Bishop, just one question. Range of age in terms of the people that you look after.
So our seniors, they can be we've got a few that are like late 50s and going to mid to late 90s.
Okay.
Our drivers are often seniors themselves. They've recently retired, so we do have, I think we have a driver who's 83.
Our drivers kind of range from 22 to in late 80s themselves, so there's a good mix. And then we do have some exceptions, like Jen was saying about seniors who are under the age limit. Around 50 plus.
Okay. Great. No, just the definition of senior seems to be growing. I just wanted to get a sense from you what the age is. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for coming in. Okay, do you see there's a whole bunch of interest from our council and a desire and willingness to help? So I'm gonna make a motion that we refer you back to our administration and Paul to meet with them and to come back up and come up with a plan on how we can sort of assist you and get you through the grant process if that's the way it goes, and work with us and try to solve some solutions. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so that brings us to item 7B, and got some bad news. CAO, you want to?
Yes, Your Worship, through council.
They're not coming tonight.
As it turns out, we've had a scheduling glitch with the consultant that was going to present the RTSC final report. In fact, he's still in St. Albert as we speak. Thought the meeting started at 8 o'clock. His EA thought the meeting started at 8 o'clock, so we're not going to get him to race across the Henday to get here. So what we're looking at is we still have 2 meetings before the vote. And one of the ideas, and I know council has talked about this at length and is pretty intimately aware of the RTSC and the final report, but this was one of the purposes of this presentation was to get it out to the public, to help get more of that information out. So we still have 2 public meetings before the vote, or one and then the vote. So we're working right now to try and get them back here on Tuesday, the 18th, or on the 25th when the vote happens. So we'll get them in front of the public. But you're right, not going to happen tonight.
Fair enough. So moving on to business item 8A, council policy number 39, recreational facility allocation policy. Administration.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. My name is Sean Gillen, BSRC Supervisor, and joining me is Director of Community Services, Paul Suter. We are here to discuss Council Policy C39, Recreational Facility Allocation Policy, with a recommendation for Council to approve the Recreational Facility Allocation Policy. To provide some background, a review of the existing allocation practices for the use of the Ken Nickel Regional Rec Center, Beaumont Sports and Recreation Center, and the city sport fields have revealed a need for the establishment of an overarching policy. This will ensure that all recreational facilities and spaces booked through the city are processed in a consistent, transparent, and equitable manner. The policy outlines a priority for allocating space that ensures that Beaumont residents, community volunteer organizations, and local user groups are given priority over non-local individuals, groups, and events. Excuse me. With the proposed recreational facility allocation policy, administration will be able to continue to facilitate and support residents in leading active and healthy lives, while also supporting local community volunteer organizations and user groups in continuing to provide programming and services that benefit all of Beaumont in a consistent, transparent, and equitable manner. The process will also facilitate greater communication and enhance relationships between local community volunteer organizations, user groups, and the city. The need of an overarching policy was also identified in the newly approved Our Place and Play Recreation Parks and Facilities Master Plan. Previous council and committee decisions. The recreational facility allocation policy was presented to Committee of the Whole on December 17th with direction from council to work with the Recreation, Parks and Culture Advisory Committee. On January 22nd, the recreational facility allocation policy was discussed at the Recreation, Parks and Culture Advisory Committee meeting. The committee was in support of the recreational facility allocation policy as presented. Changes were made surrounding on what constitutes local versus non-local, as well as using facilities in general statements instead of facility specific. Overall, administration recommends moving forward with adopting the recreational facility allocation policy. This policy will provide clear expectations to local community volunteer organizations and user groups for how facilities will be allocated, who gets priority, and what thresholds are required for minor and local status. Having a single policy govern how city facilities are to be booked for community volunteer organizations and user groups will allow for greater opportunity for all Beaumont residents.
Thank you very much. Yeah, read the document. It's a great piece of work. I was really happy to see the engagement piece that went through the Sports and Rec Committee and that they were in support of it. And so yeah, I'm happy to move this forward. Is there a member of council willing to move adoption of the council policy number 39? Councillor Downlock.
So moved, Your Worship. Thank you.
Discussion on the motion. Or questions for Councillor Downlock?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just an apology to council. I am the representative of council on that committee. We had our first meeting back on January 22nd, and I did not get my report done to council. Many actually happened that day, so I dropped the ball on that one. I apologize to council for not doing that. We had a very robust discussion that evening with both gentlemen in attendance, and the committee is very excited on this new policy and fully endorses what's being presented today. So thank you very much.
Councillor Van Nieuwkerk.
Thank you. And just wanted to acknowledge too the discussion that happened around the tennis courts and the outdoor rink. I support where that went around, the spontaneous access to these facilities might diminish if you start scheduling with them. I do recall in this chambers in the past council did have a disagreement of sorts on their hands between the tennis group and the pickleball group. So I do know that conflicts have existed with the spontaneous space. So I would just suggest that we keep an eye on that, and in the future, if there becomes an issue, then it could be allocated under this policy. So just a comment and wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Councillor Brunner.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much. Policy looks good. Question, because I was looking at it from the point of view of a lot of different events that go on and different groups. And the one that I was wondering if the definition is the same definition for local event and local public event. Is there any difference, or are those meant to be the same?
Thank you, Your Worship, to Councillor Barnhart. When looking at the local events, it is an event that is not hosted by the city. So, and then looking at the public events, it's more of a city event.
Does it matter if it's a nonprofit or a private event?
When looking at events, it depends on who the organizing group is. If it's a local minor sports organization, as it pertains to events, no. It's just broken
Public just
down
means the
into,
public is invited? Is
Correct.
that your interpretation of, and it's a non-city run? City run is the first priority,
Correct.
and second would be the, okay, I think I get it, okay.
Councillor Hendricks.
Worship, thank you, and certainly you're chasing the impossible, which is to keep everybody happy. There's been all sorts of attempts at trying to make this work, and it's really boils down to relationships with people and your ability to moderate the situations. I would suggest maybe in a year from now, come back to us and just give us an update. Let us know how this process went, and hopefully this is the magic bullet that gets it solved. So thank you.
I think you're chasing a unicorn, but but we can try. Seeing no further requests to speak, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Appreciate all the hard work and effort that went into that. Brings us to item 8B, notice of motion from Councillor Hendricks. We'll go with Ms. Winter, followed by Councillor Hendricks to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to members of council and the public. In accordance with the meeting procedures bylaw 974-20, once a notice of motion is made, it will be placed on the next regular council meeting agenda by the elected official who made the notice of motion. At the January 28th, 2020 regular council meeting, Councillor Hendricks made the following notice of motion: that the fireworks component of the 2019 Brighten Up Beaumont event be included in the 2020 Brighten Up Beaumont event. At this time, administration is looking for direction from council on how it wishes to proceed. Thank you.
Councillor Hendricks.
Simply put, the Community Events Committee meeting that I attended suggested that this might be something that's not going to be included, and it wasn't a discussion with the committee. It was just something that the administration came back to us with at that meeting, and I said, well, just a minute. We as a committee, I think, should have the teeth to have some say in whether or not it's a yes or no. And then the argument was, well, there's no place to put the fireworks program because apparently we're now moving the whole Brighten Up Beaumont from the high school to the new outfit. So, which was also a bit of a surprise for me. So I said, well, hold it. We as a committee should have some say in this process. And I was able to reach out a bit to the admin on this, and certainly I did get some responses that there will be some assistance at the next committee meeting, to talk about exactly what our roles and responsibilities are as members of this committee, which I'm thankful for. But I also want to ensure that we're going to have fireworks at this next Brighten Up Beaumont, no matter where it is. Even if we just left the fireworks in the Four Seasons Park, I don't want it cast off because of a potential so-called location issue. That's a big part of the event. I feel it's an absolute requirement, and I think we'll, as I say, we'll wear it as council if we have the event without it. I don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't have it. So I just want to make sure, and I'm bringing it here. It seems to be the only mechanism I have left to ensure that this thing gets done. That's why it's here tonight.
I don't suppose there's a bit of an update from administration on the fireworks.
Most of the members of council, my understanding is that we budgeted for the fireworks and they will proceed as always. The issue is just around location of the events themselves, not the fireworks.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And so Your Worship, the discussion I heard and I was told was that we may not be having them this year. Well, that's not good enough for me. And that was at the committee level. So thank you to admin for reaching back and reaching out. And thank you for allowing somebody from admin to be at the next committee meeting to explain what our roles and responsibilities are as members of that committee.
No, I do appreciate that, but it does bring up a grander conversation because I'm sitting here looking at this notice of motion, and quite properly the planning of the events is the province of the events committee. And so if we have to start bringing these types of things to council, then what's the point of the committee? And so
I think I sent a message to you, right? And I just want the next meeting, if we have
necessarily get membership. We had certainly all sorts of other things to get to this point now. We looked up the name of this committee, committee of this committee, and saying that we need as a committee, just to follow in terms of reference, like we're with it, that we have teeth in that committee to say yes or no. Various issues that we have a budgeting process in front of us. It's being asked of us what the budget's going to be. Apparently, there was also I think they call it OBA. It's just additional ask for this upcoming weekend's events, and you know, spending about $3,000 or so to pertain to this weekend's events. So I think we as a committee should have sort of a background knowledge that goes with it, so we can make a decision on it. And also part of the stumble this time was, of course, we had to go through this budgetary process, which took us in January. Left the room with not one of it to proceed on various matters. That stumble process. Glad to hear you fireworks. I think I said that, as I say, the shadow of the bomb. Hopefully, this committee will understand why we're here, what we're supposed to be doing, and we look forward to this.
Okay, I see a number of councillors lined up to speak on this matter. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Hendricks, for bringing that forward. And when we're talking about committee business at a council meeting, I just wonder if I recall hearing that there were agreements with providers and vendors in the past that spanned commitment year over year over year. Just a question for Councillor Hendricks: is there a fireworks agreement in place right now that would be required to be fulfilled as well?
That goes to the council and to the rest of the council. I don't have that answer. I don't know if it's a one-time event. If they're licensed each and every time, I'm not sure how it's done, because none of that comes back to our committee, right, in terms of discussion. So.
Okay, thank you. And I asked that question because I think the committee should know that type of information. So, thank you.
Councillor Michael Swain.
Thanks, Your Worship. I guess I too was surprised about this notice of motion. Appreciate the background on why you brought it up here, but I guess I'll ask. I don't think we need to go ahead and maybe you want to rescind it. I'm not sure how you want to go about this, but yeah, if there is a problem with the committee, we talked about this at length during a committee of the whole meeting, and we had a good discussion about it. And the decision was to continue it on, and it sounded like we had made some progress. Yet now I'm hearing this not. So if there's a problem with the committee, maybe it's a conversation around the terms of reference or the actual involvement, or how that committee is shaped up to perform what they're expected to do. So if that's a bigger issue, I think that's something that council should weigh in on. Yeah, whether we have fireworks or not, I too was under the impression that was the committee, and we'd never looked at that before. So I was just confused at where that came from. So I guess that the question is this a bigger picture thing that you think council should be looking at? Your comments about a shot over the bow, I don't quite understand where you're coming from there.
Well, if I can take you back in time, of course, I've been on this committee at various styles, types, and names over many, many years. But over time, it's dissolved into what it is currently, which is Community Events Committee. Now, even at this level, what I'm finding is that I'm attending meetings and being asked to be a volunteer in meetings. Can you help set up chairs? Can you help do this? Yeah, no, that's not why I'm here. I think the purpose of the committee is to establish all these events, make sure they're all running properly, and in fact enhance the events and have the conversation around the enhancement of the events, but not just to be somebody told that on Wednesday at 7 o'clock once a month, can you volunteer for this upcoming event? That I'm worn out with. I think the committee, at one point we used to have sort of the budgetary process. In fact, when the year that we brought in the parade float, that was a good year for that group, because we got to work through design, budgets, process, got her done, right? but over time, it seems to have dissolved back into, if you're a volunteer on that group, you're really a volunteer. You're just there to implement, the activity. I think we're here to create the activity and the events. I've done a lot of research on various other events that I keep bringing forward to this committee level. And saying, well, how about this idea or how about that idea? And yeah, anyway, it's parked and ignored, and let's go down the same old path that we've had up to this point with all these other events. So I'm saying, no, that's not why we're here. I think our role is all encompassing, not parts of, and not strictly to be do the heavy lifting to get the actual program running, right? We have the upcoming 125th celebration. So the discussion is around that, and I keep raising it. So what are we doing? How are we going to get set up? Part of the setup need is to perhaps flip the location of the stage. The stage that last time was on the south side. We want to flip it to the north side, get a bigger beer tent. And yeah, it's like, well, yeah, but we got to talk to Parks and Rec and this and that, and we'll get back to you. No, that's what we like to do. We like to flip this thing around. We had all the feedback, and it's well, we're going to wait till hear back from others. So okay, so then we don't have any level of say in how this gets done. I would think that's the committee level, and that's how we want to get it done. But so we're getting this ongoing pushback, and I've gone through a complete review of the and potentially another one. So let's keep the momentum up. But I don't want to be sitting there being asked to volunteer. Or my family, because I have a large family, maybe some of your kids can go out and help with this, that, and the other thing. That's not the role of this committee, in my opinion. So we need to facilitate events and more events. We have a CCBCC that could use some events outside of the days where there's nothing going on, right? So we're trying to bring those types of things to that building and to this community. And I think that's the role of this committee. And that's pretty much the way the terms of reference reads. But not that we're shut off from budgets, process, timing, and only get the volunteer ask, right? That part I want to get rid of. So when I'm told, well, it doesn't look like we're going to do the fireworks this year because we have no place to put it. No. That conversation belongs at the committee level. We'll decide if there's going to be no fireworks and where they may or may not go. But we're dismissed. It's just, no, that's what's going to happen. Okay, then why am I sitting here? What is the purpose of being here on a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, hearing that out? To me, that doesn't make any sense. So that's why I brought this here. I'm saying I'm going to make a point of this. There's going to be fireworks, and we're not going to not have it, whether or not it's at Four Seasons Park or at 180 acres. It's going to happen. Let's get this done, right? And then, but what's come of it in a very positive way is that men's come back to us and said, listen, maybe we need some staffing at those meetings to assist, to talk about that. So we're going to get some people at the next meeting to explain the entire role so that we are working the way we're supposed to work. Because I don't currently like the way it's going. So,
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor Hendricks, for raising the issue and again trying to get it resolved. You never gave up on this one, so that's great. And I think we can refer this motion back if that's another motion. I'd be pleased to do it, but it does go. One of the options here is to refer it back to the administration, and I think that's what we need to do because it'll come back to your committee, and I think we already know how that's going to be resolved at that level. It shouldn't be here at council for this decision. It should be at the committee level. So I'd like to refer it back to the administration to take it there.
Exit interviews from some people after they left this committee, which were pretty tough. And admin got to hear some of the comments. And I've got them in writing, and it got quiet. It finally started going in the right, what I consider the right direction. And we're starting to go right back to the way we were, which is we're considered to be employees or staff or volunteer, whatever you want to call it, of this group, and you will do this, and this to facilitate this event. No, that's not how I see it. So thank you for your indulgence here.
No, I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
I do wish it had come in less of a theatrical way, and you just made a councillor's report and saying we're having trouble with the committee versus a notice of motion about fireworks. But I get the point, and I'm glad we're having this discussion. And
sure,
I am going to refer this back to admin. to do a little work with the committee, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I'll get to the council members in a second. So I think that's where it needs to go. I think a discussion needs to be had between senior administration and the committee, and perhaps I will attend myself, and we'll go from there. Any further discussion on this item tonight? I don't think there was any motion made, so I think we're okay.
So procedurally, I just want to confirm that Councillor Hendricks wishes to withdraw his notice of motion that he made at the January 28th, 2020 meeting, and that Mayor Stewart wishes to move that to direct administration to work with the events committee on their bylaw. And they don't have a terms of reference. It falls within the bylaw.
It's not the right motion because we're reviewing fireworks, so. Councillor Hendricks?
So moved.
So moved. All in favor? Yeah, this is withdrawn and we're moving to refer back to admin. Well, it's all in one motion, but two, you want two?
No, I just want to provide clarification that Councillor Hendricks can just withdraw his notice of motion. Once he withdraws, it's as if it never happened. And then there would just be one motion directing administration to work with the events committee.
I believe that's our intention. Councillor Hendricks? He's withdrawing his motion. No, but we are voting on referring back to admin.
Correct.
Waiting for Councillors Monkoff, Swain, Stout, and Danlock. Carries unanimously. No worries. All right, we've already done with the bylaws tonight. Item 10, councillor inquiries and reports. We'll start with questions for admin. Does anybody have a question of administration this evening? Councillor Hendricks.
Your Worship, I realize we didn't have our transit discussion tonight, but at the budget workshop, I'd suggested that perhaps council get a copy of the previous transit study that was done, that the previous council used to make a decision on implementing the transit system for Beaumont. So I'd like to see a copy of that just sent around to council. It implements not only the baseline for how we got started with the bus system, but it also has a number of phases internal to Beaumont, not part of the regional system, but internal to Beaumont. So I thought the author of that study did a bang-up job explaining how we go from just a collector-type system to a full-blown transit system within Beaumont. So I think it'd be an excellent read for everybody. So,
update. CEO says he will have that distributed. Any further questions of admin this evening? Are there any councillors wishing to make statements this evening as to their activities or otherwise? Nope. All right, so I do have a bit of a brief update. January was a bit of a slow month, but we seem to be getting back on the roll with the regional items, and there are significant events that are occurring outside of our borders that are that will have a significant impact on Beaumont. The AUMA, some of you may have heard, there was the President's Summit. The notifications that came out of that in regards to the Local Authorities Election Act and funding other things. So looking forward to the follow-up from AUMA on those events. I was in attendance. It was a really good event. Lots of good discussion was had. Edmonton Global is currently undergoing strategy sessions to revamp its, but basically they're doing a year-long, they're doing their year, been in operation about a year. They're doing a check with all the municipalities, and I was pleased to be invited as Beaumont's rep to sit in on that particular meeting with the city of Leduc County, and Devon. And while there are some issues and challenges with communication between Edmonton Global and its municipalities, things are progressing rather nicely. And one of the things that everybody has to keep in mind with Edmonton Global is it is a long game. It is not a short game, as we've known through our own efforts. It's a multi-year process, not a month-long process. As well as just to highlight, it's my pleasure to be invited to the Beaumont Chamber of Commerce monthly meetings, and just want to make a quick note that the Beaumont Chamber is putting on its annual awards gala, and I highly encourage members of council to attend with me and celebrate the businesses of Beaumont on that evening and with administration. And EMRB, I don't have much of a report this week, but by the end of the month, it's going to be full blown because EMRB has a meeting. We have 2 strategy sessions, SISB, shared investment for shared benefit, RAMP, the Regional Agricultural Master Plan, the MSRP collectives are going to get going. It's a busy month for the next 3 weeks with the EMRB and those initiatives. And of course, we didn't get to transit tonight due to a scheduling snafu, but we're looking forward to seeing more of that go on. Do members of council have questions for me this evening? No. All right, which brings us to CAO's update. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hendricks.
First about just a quick question, and specifically about your emails. Have we sorted out the email situation?
We forwarded those to, for members of the public administration. My email account got spoofed and sent out to members of council a quick request for Google Play cards. So rest assured, I will never ask you for Google Play cards or iTunes or anything else like that. But yeah, I appreciate that. But yeah, no, we've referred it to our IT department and they're working on it. So all I can say is if you see something like that, actually click on the email address and make sure it's from my address at beaumont.ca and not some weird thing from Hotmail. So.
Right. No, having received yours, I phoned you, but I'd also sent it to Mr. Springer and hadn't heard back from Mr. Springer, so I wasn't sure if this.
Yeah, I did close the loop on that. Okay. He's aware and we're moving it in. CAO?
Thank you, Your Worship, Council, members of the public. Just further to the email issues that we're seeing that happening with text messages as well. So if you get a text message from somebody that you know, but we're requesting something along those purchases, please reach out to them by phone and verify it. You'll likely find out that it's a scam. What's that?
Yeah, don't respond.
Yeah, don't respond, yes. 3 quick items here. Budget open houses wrapped up last Wednesday. We had one 2 weeks apart, one at CCBCC and then one at the Ken Nickel Arena. So now we will bring the budget back to Committee of the Whole next week, Tuesday the 18th, and then to the regular council on February 25th. So that's pretty exciting. We have privilege to describe to the public and to council, we've added 2 new flags to our council chambers. Off to the left side there, we've added the Métis flag, and we've also added a Franco-Alberta flag. The Métis flag was given to us a couple months ago at an excellent suggestion or session that we had with the Métis community, and then we've added the Franco-Alberta flag as well. So sprucing up the place and representing 2 very good causes. People, sorry. One other item is we're currently scheduling a meeting with our Member of Parliament, Mike Lake. He's reached out to us, so we'll try and get that set up here, similar to the last time we met with him. If you recall, we did, I think, late in the afternoon with council, so we'll do that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sure.
Thank you. CEO, you mentioned the new budget. Well, you mentioned the budget coming back Committee of the Whole, and then again for that council meeting. Can you just provide a bit of background on the process? So you've provided us a budget package in our workshop. So will there be an updated budget based on our discussion for the Committee of the Whole meeting? And if so, when would that be available to the public?
Yeah, that's correct. We're taking the feedback that we had from the public open houses and also the direction that was provided to council. There was a number of actions that we were looking at, including other alternate sources of funding. So that'll come back as part of the budget package on when the agenda is released on Thursday. Thursday, Friday? Friday.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
That's awesome. Do members of council have notices of motion this evening? No. All right. Can I get a motion to move into closed session for the economic advocacy? Councillor Barnhart.
So moved, Your Worship.
All in favor? We are now in closed session, and We'll take a quick 5, reset the room, and